You're listening to the Quit Your Job and Get Creative podcast, where we talk about quitting your unfulfilling job and pursuing your creative entrepreneurial dreams. My goal is to help you realize earning a living doing what you love is possible for you. You'll hear stories of women who have quit their 9-to-5 jobs and started their creative businesses. You'll learn how they did it, the ups and downs, and secrets to success. I believe that you are good enough and capable to live out your dreams. I'm your host, Jocelyn Clarkson. Now, let's get started. Welcome back to another episode. I'm so excited for today's episode because I had Molly Hebda, and she's going to be talking about why your story is critical for your branding. Molly is a self-taught photographer. She started working as a content creator, but quickly grew frustrated when she couldn't find the right images for her content. So she decided to take matters into her own hands, bought her first camera, and started her photography business. Welcome, Molly. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here, Jocelyn. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I'm so excited because you actually drove an hour to get here. So I appreciate you so much for being here.
Anytime I get a chance to come to the city, it's okay by me. Yay. So yeah, especially when it's with you.
Thank you so much, Molly.
Absolutely.
So the way I like to start these, interviews is let's take it back to the beginning. What did you want to be when you were a young girl?
That's easy. I had my Oscar speech memorized to the T. Always said it in the mirror with my brush and everything. I wanted to be an actress. I found that was a great escape from life, and I wanted to be other characters and other people and emote those emotions for others. So I actually went to, at my high school, we did a lot of shows. I was never a lead in the musical because that was not for me.
Okay.
But I was, dance captain, all that kind of stuff for the musicals. But my freshman year, I got a lead in a show. And that led me to go to Roosevelt University, and I went to the theater program there. And I did semi-professional theater up until I was 7 months pregnant with my son, who is now 20.
Wow. So when did you discover that you were a creative type of person? Because, so you talk about wanting to be an actress, but at what point did you realize I have a creative talent, this is what I want to do?
I was definitely creative from the beginning. I, danced when I was little. My parents, we didn't have a lot of money.
Okay.
So every time that we went to, we would have a dance, dance for kids, I would go to classes. I'd only go for a certain amount of time for when they could afford it. So I tried, flute, I tried piano, I tried violin, I did dance, I did theater, and thankfully in the school systems, I was able to do most of that stuff for free. So I was in show choir, all those kinds of things. Yeah. And I loved art, I loved drawing, I loved, I could take a look at something and actually just draw it from memory. So yeah, there's definitely creativity in my blood. My dad actually can draw really well. He could listen to music and play an instrument and not even know what the notes are, any of that kind of stuff. My grandmother, she was, very creative. She, was blind towards the end of her life and was able to do crochet and create arts with, bread and glue and make flowers and things like that. So yeah, it's definitely in the blood.
I love that. So tell me how you landed on photography, because you mentioned all these things you tried, but you didn't mention photography.
No, well, when I don't know if you ever went on vacation to any of the western towns or Minnesota, they would have it in the, the forts and things like that. And then in the downtown, they would have those photography opportunities where you just dress like the Western folks, the wanted posters. Everybody's so serious. So I tried that when my mom was babysitting kids, but that was just random.
So you would try it on the kids you would babysit for fun?
Yeah. So lame. But otherwise, there was really never a photography route. I was always in front of the camera with theater and a very short stint of modeling. But I didn't pick up a camera until June of 2016.
Wow.
So, I had been, after my theater stint, I did makeup artistry and managed a cosmetic studio and then worked for a dance company and taught dance, and then also managed a company that was out in LA and Vegas when we put productions and shows on. So I didn't have a camera, but I in any of those jobs, I was self-taught in most of that stuff. So every time that I had a position, they would say, hey, could you do this? I would just jump in on it.
Right.
So we did social media and building websites for the company that I worked for. And these are all small businesses, like women-owned businesses, you know, trudging through. You don't have a budget on anything. So we just kind of had to figure things out on our own. And when I started doing more social media and working with our team, they wanted to put out the pretty pictures.
Right.
But I wanted to tell the transformational stories that we had with our students, and with the students then becoming part of these large productions on stage. So we never had those photos, and after complaining about it for a couple of years, my husband was just like, just get a camera and do it yourself. And I thought about it for a while, and then finally I was just like, you know what, I can't take this anymore. I can't do other people's schedules. I can't work for anybody else that's not listening to the ideas that I have. So might as well just do it myself.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a lot of questions. So let me go back. So when you're going through, so you did makeup artistry, you did dance. When you're going through these jobs, let me ask you this: did you feel like you were fulfilled, like you were doing your life's calling?
I know that there was, I mean, even to this day, there's still something out there. I know photography is a catalyst to whatever is going to happen next. So I've always felt the same thing with everything that I've done. You know, theater, you would do a show for, you know, production for 6 to 8 weeks, and then you would do a 3 to 4 week run, and then you would move on to the next thing. So I was kind of used to being like, I guess, a gypsy within like whatever I was doing.
Right.
So makeup artistry, but it all had a common thread. There was always empowerment in everything that I was doing with makeup artistry. A woman would come in and, you know, her shoulders were slumped, and maybe she didn't have the best day, and she may be just like looking for a lipstick. And we had the opportunity to sit down, let's do a little mini facial. Let's do let's just play with makeup and have a good time and conversation and getting to know them. And by the end of it, they would walk out with their shoulders high, sparkle in their eye, confidence in their step. Like it felt good. It felt fulfilling.
Right.
And then when I did with the dance, so just full disclosure, I was a pole dance instructor.
Right.
So the same thing, that pole dancing helped me find my femininity and find my, jive again in life. It came at a time when I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. So it helped me through my diagnosis and through finding the right medication to feel better about life. And then becoming an instructor there also gave me more purpose in helping others, no matter what size, what age, what gender, like what nationality that they were. We all had the same commonality of getting to the next step of where we are, getting stronger for ourselves, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally as well.
Yeah, you know what I find interesting about what you said was that when you're working for this company creating content, right, they wanted the pretty pictures, and we're talking like, this is like, during the Instagram era where it was all filtered and it was all images and Photoshop and all of that. But, I think it's quite interesting that you were looking for not the pretty pictures, but the transformation, like the story behind it. And I think that, the way that thinking in itself, I think that's what makes you such a great photographer, because you're not really, it's more than just a pretty picture. And I think some of the images that you take are just raw, and there's more to a brand than just the pretty pictures. It's
Absolutely.
A transformation, and it's beyond the makeup. It's about confidence. It's about making your subject feel, kind of being able to evoke those emotions in them, whether it's confidence or whatever it may be, which I've done a couple sessions with you. And I love it because when I'm shooting with you, you always say, like, what are you looking forward to? What are your goals? Think about those goals. And so when I tap into those goals, and I'm like, okay, this is my genuine self, being photographed, as opposed to me coming in at the beginning, being a little stiff and just kind of being like, all right, let's get these like really good pictures. So I think, the fact that you say that, the fact that you thought that way is what makes you a great photographer. So you grew frustrated, you didn't have the right content. Was photography ever, did you start it simply out of frustration, or was there some interest in photography? You were like, I'm frustrated and I'm also interested, this is perfect.
Well, when I was working on social media posts, I would actually have to edit other people's photos. I saw mistakes in them and things like that. So I had to create, these posts for everything, but I, had to teach myself how to use Photoshop and all these things. So it wasn't necessarily the photos themselves, and how we've talked about the creativity and things like that. I started this business as thinking, all right, this is going to be my business. It's not about the art, it's not about that, but it's actually kind of become that because of all those things. Like taking my theater background, taking how you can kind of try to get those emotions out of people and make people feel a certain way just by the way that you think about stuff. And then building the confidence with, feeling good about yourself in the skin that you have, but then also, being able to pose and move your body and then think about those goals. Like all of those things just all play together. And had I not had those experiences, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing right now.
Right. And so when you finally bought the camera, was it kind of, did you quit the job and start the business, or were you running them parallel?
I was doing the parallel.
Transition?
Yeah,
okay,
for sure.
Got it.
I received my camera in June 2016, and then by August 2016, I was out in our quarries in downtown Lamont with women in cocktail dresses.
Okay.
And they were literally climbing trees and heels and things like that. But I was still also doing my job virtually for LA and Vegas. So my last show was in January, which I had just moved into my first studio space. So 6 months later, I had my own little studio.
Okay.
And then I realized that, I don't want to do both. My old job was not fulfilling me anymore. This is something that I really want to pursue, and I feel like I'm in a good place with it, and I just want to see what happens with it. So,
right. So when you say you were in a good place with it, were you earning enough or earning even somewhat? Because I think that's what keeps a lot of women from making that leap is, they want to, but they don't have the financial means to.
So I do have the lucky aspect. I had the full support of my husband and my family. So he did have a full-time position that was able to afford me to, decide whether or not I was going to pursue this on my own or so my other job, and in the arts, we all think that, we're all going to be starving artists,
yes.
and dance is still an art, and, makeup is an art. So I never truly made a real salary.
Okay.
If I look back at my timeline, my income was never above basically minimum wage. It was never anything that was bigger than that. So I saw the potential in my business, even though when you first start your business, you really don't feel like you're going to make any money until 3 to 5 years.
Yes.
That was the traditional thought process. And I truly didn't start really earning all that much until 2020 came.
Wow.
So I was able to pay my bills. I was able to pay for the studio, pay for my equipment, bring a little bit of money in for the family and things like that. But it really didn't change until the bad things of 2020 happened,
So how did you, how did you learn photography? Because you didn't go to school for this. And I think, the fact that I look at your pictures and the fact that you told me you didn't pick up a camera until 2016 is mind-boggling, because your photos are beautiful.
Thank you.
And I would never think that, you just learned you taught yourself photography, 6 years ago. It just seems that you have this real talent, but how did you teach yourself Photoshop? How did you learn how to take good photos?
Well, people have asked me, hey, can you just teach us how to use the camera? I am not a technical person on it. Like, I know my triangle, like, okay, if I, raise this, I need to lower this, or any of that kind of stuff. So I've come to find, it's practice, trial and error for sure. I do a lot of online courses. I try to, I feel like I'm just an ever evolving learner. I want to learn as much as possible, and I am better hands-on. So if you give me like the idea of what I'm supposed to do, and then I'll just pick up the camera and figure it out and then just move on with it. I'm also not one of those, the whole technical thing too with the photography. I have a purpose when I go and take a photo, so we're not going to spend an hour or two on one single photo. We're going to get those images, and then we're going to move on to the next phase as well. So I know it's probably not the best thing for photography, but it works for me and what I'm doing.
Right. So did you ever feel, maybe internally or externally from clients, or maybe kind of the thoughts running in your head when you're starting that, did you ever feel that you weren't good enough?
Do we ever feel good enough? Do we ever?
Especially from someone, I think for me, going into fashion design, being a self-taught fashion designer, up against people who have gone to fashion school, right? Was there ever a voice in your head that was saying, when you started this, I don't know if I can do this, because what if people ask me where I went to school? And you're like, actually, I just learned, right? Was that ever a barrier for you?
Definitely in the beginning. At first, with anything that I do, I never feel like there's failure. There's always lessons learned. So even if I go out and fall on my face, there's been plenty of times that I've done that.
You can get a good picture out of it.
You could get a good picture out of it. I definitely feel like there's always lessons to be learned. So as time has gone on, I am definitely more confident. I was telling somebody the other day that even though I never finished my college degree, the past 6 years, I have invested so much in education and mentorship and programs and all these things that I kind of feel I have a little bit of my own PhD situation.
Yeah, I was going to say MBA, but yeah, you're right, PhD, next level.
So, and anytime that you run your own business, you have to learn so much. It's not just, the money side, it's not just the technical side of what you're actually doing or the design or any of that. It's learning about who you are and your mental game as well too. It's you really have to know who you are as a person. That was probably the biggest lessons.
Yeah. So taking it back to the beginning, right? Where you started off as motion inspired.
Yes,
right?
I did.
So so you're running this in parallel with your virtual job. How did you land your first clients? How did you market yourself, and how did you decide who or what you were going to photograph?
So in the beginning, motion inspired, I actually, came up with a name because I was in the dance world. I thought, well, this is probably going to be part of that and the movement and things like that. Also, so when I first started with the women in cocktail dresses, I just wanted some beautiful photos, and I wanted to make people feel good. Okay. So I just wanted to build people's confidence, and then test out what I was doing with the camera, and also just earn enough money to buy my first lights.
Okay.
So there was purpose behind it, but then also meet people. So I just put it on Facebook and was like, hey, who has a cocktail dress and wants to go take photos? And it was literally $40 in the woods.
That's amazing though. I love that you did that, because I think a lot of people, when they first start out, they have this, and I think this helps serve as a purpose. They'll do free photographs, which helps build a portfolio. You offered a small amount, they got something in return, but it was leading to a bigger purpose of getting you the lights, you're investing. And I think that's something that our listeners can take on, is even if you're starting small, you have the right to ask for that sale. You have a right to put a price on it, whether
Absolutely.
It's a small amount. You don't have to do everything for free.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
And I feel like we as entrepreneurs and as women, we also don't ask for our value either. $40 was nothing, but I had a goal, okay, I need to book out these 2 weekends so I can buy this lighting system.
Right.
And I did. And so if I have a monetary goal, if I have a specific goal to work towards, then of course I'm going to do everything I can to get to that goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And who were the ones booking? Was it friends and family?
I had some friends and family, but then there was just like random people that I didn't even know that were friends of friends, or like, you know, heard it from somebody else. And I do feel like the pole dance world, like of all these women from all these different backgrounds, also like bred just a lot of like community of women empowering each other kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I felt like it was just like a good group of people to have. And those photos, some of those photos are still some of my favorite photos. I just did a gallery last week, a re-grand opening, because I just moved spaces again. And I took one of the photos from those quarries and then put it up next to one of the photos that I just recently took of our village. And this woman's photo was of sunset and the other one was of sunrise.
Aww.
And you know how they do on like social media where it's like how I started and where I am?
Yeah.
I put those two photos next to each other and they could have been taken on the same day.
Aww.
And it was the same kind of colors, the same kind of vibe, same kind of beauty. And even though one was a person and one was our town, like you could still just like, you know what? I knew what I was doing, even though I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, I was going to say, what did you feel when you saw those pictures?
I just feel so good. Like I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think it goes to say, like, if you have the talent, you have it, right? I just feel like a lot of people, you know, they don't go out and do things because they feel like, again, they don't have the experience.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know what I'm doing, or they just don't start. And I think it's so important to just start, right? Whether it's a Facebook post starting with cocktail dresses, $40, like, and now look at you now, years later, and you can't tell the difference between a photo you shot 6 years ago versus now. I think that's really special. So you have motion inspired, but how did you land on brand photography? Because you're taking pictures of women in cocktail dresses, maybe some motion, right, inspired. How did you land on brand photography?
So motion inspired again came from like the movement, from the dance world, and you know, like the movement in, you know, the beauty for women, all that kind of stuff, empowerment, all that kind of I don't know, there was some kind of through line right there. But so in the beginning, because I had never done photography before, I just kind of had to say yes to anything and everything. So I did all kinds of different events. I even did weddings, which I do not do weddings.
That's a big take on.
That is a big, no thank you. I like my weekends and I like my sanity. Right. I leave those to the professionals to go ahead and do. So I tried weddings, I did events, I did bar mitzvahs, I did newborns and children, all these things. And up until, say, like 2020, when I, you know, had that moment of pause to really figure out that clarity piece of like, okay, what do I really want to do? Where did I start? Why did I start this business? And how am I going to go forward with it? That's when I came back to that piece of getting back to that transitional story of my clients and of what they're doing in life. So that branding piece came back to that. And as soon as I went back to that clarity and narrowed that down to that's what my purpose is, that's what I want to do with this, that's when all the pieces fell into place. And that's when my business actually took off. I did, you know, in 18 months during 2020, through the thick of it, I, you know, doubled my business. That's awesome. And I landed big clients and did amazing work and had people fly in from Houston and flew out to Seattle, and it just felt right. And so that clarity piece and being able to go back to the beginning of like, okay, why did I start this and who do I want to work with and what do I want to be doing rather than like what people think I should be doing, that's when everything came into play.
Hi, gorgeous listeners. I have exciting news to share. If you're an inspiring entrepreneur who has been thinking about starting your business and ultimately quitting your job, but you're having trouble figuring out how to get started on your business and how to leave your job feeling fully prepared, then listen up. I am working with a select few aspiring entrepreneurs to coach them into starting their businesses and preparing them to quit their job the right way. My mission is to empower women to follow their dreams. And what better way to accomplish that than by doing just that? I quit my 9-to-5 job at a Fortune 500 company 2 years ago to start my clothing brand business. And it has been the most challenging but exhilarating journey I have embarked on. I made many mistakes and learned so many lessons, and I want to empower women to embark on their own entrepreneurial journey in a way that makes them feel prepared and confident to take that leap. This is a new coaching program, and as part of the beta launch, the selected candidates will receive deeply discounted pricing. You'll get a series of one-on-one sessions with me where I prepare you to save money to fund your business, figure out what business to start, build your product offering and bring it to market, have those tough conversations with your spouse, family, and employer, build a community of entrepreneurs you can lean on for inspiration and support, ultimately quit your job where you feel completely prepared for your new journey, and so much more. Apply using the quick 6-question form using the link in the show notes. Can't wait to help you make your dreams come true. You know, I think that's important to also call out how many people are on your team. Yeah. For a long time, it was just you, right?
It was just me.
And now you have someone helping you, but do you have any other employees?
No, I don't have any other employees, but I have learned over the years. It's been a year and a half since I actually brought on my assistant, Sarah. She was at first just helping me with just like behind the scenes with like reels, and I'm like, here, you deal with the reels, you figure this out.
Right.
But she's helped with assisting with all the photo shoots, and she's starting to get into video as well.
Wow.
So I'm really excited about all of that. And then eventually, I never saw my business growing like this, but now I'm seeing the potential of being able to bring on an associate and, have them maybe bring on that extra revenue of adding on family photos and things like that, while I can focus on what I want to do, like with the brands and headshots and all that.
No, I love that. So, I notice a big shift in the brand. So, I, from a customer and, I sign up for your email newsletters and just kind of social media, I notice a big shift in your brand, which is why I thought it was important for you to come on here and talk about branding.
Yes.
So why, because at first you were motion inspired,
mm-hmm.
and then you went to Molly Hebda photography. So explain to me why that change occurred.
So here I am telling all of my clients that they need to be the face of their business. All these entrepreneurs, small businesses, we're not these big conglomerate, companies and, big boxes that, have this name and it's a brand that there's like a million people behind it. We are our business. Right. And the way that we can connect to our community is to be ourselves and to take that piece of us into our business. So after some time, I was like, and I've heard from a couple different mentors, they're like, well, I thought you were a dance photographer. I'm like, well, originally I was, but not anymore. So I had to take my own advice, and I decided, you know what, if I'm going to own this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to make it bigger, I need to take my name. So in 2021, I switched over to Molly Hebda Photography. Motion Inspired is still my LLC.
Right.
But I did take on my own name and rebranded, redid my website, and just, decided to own it.
Let me ask you something, because I think it takes courage to do that. So it's a 2-part question. Do you think that you were hiding? And then 2, what gave you the courage to put yourself front and center? Because it's not easy. Mm-mm. When you put yourself front and center, you're basically opening yourself up for the good and the bad, right?
Absolutely.
So were you hiding?
I definitely feel like I was. When you start your own business, you are doing so many different things, and in the beginning with like Instagram being so, filtered, like you had said, you felt like you had to be a certain way, and you had to look a certain way, and you had to do things a certain way, and you had to I don't know, you just have to show up in a certain way. And when you finally decide that, you know what, I don't have to be like everybody else, and I can do things my own way, and even if it's, you know, not what everybody wants or everybody thinks, the people that agree with it and the people that understand it will be there.
Yeah.
So once I did take my name, like it took a little bit of like, who do I think I am? Like being able to just like put my name out here like this.
Who do you think you are?
Who do you think you are? And like, you know, a lot of times too, when clients come in or when you think about brand photography even, you think that you're being vain with having photos of yourself. Like, again, who do you think you are to show up in the world like this? Like, are you this influencer? Are you like, you know, this movie star or anything like that? You're just who you are. But the more you show up, the more I show up, the more connections I make with my clients, the more community that I build, because they see that it's not all just pretty pictures. There is struggle, there is hard work, there's sweat and tears, there's, you know, disasters in buildings which cause you to close for 3 months. Like there's so many different things that happen that when you put yourself out there and you show up, then like that's the most important thing that you can do.
So that was going to lead to my next question was, how has putting yourself front and center, because even if when I went to your website, the first thing I saw was you. And I was like, yes, you know? And so what have you seen? How has the business changed? And, you know, what have been the benefits of that?
I definitely feel like people are more willing to step outside of their comfort zone. As I'm stepping outside of my comfort zone, it's taken a lot because, I mean, I have a lot of stories. I have a lot of history. I mean, I'm going to be 44 here soon. I didn't start my business until I was, you know, close to 40 years old. So what parts of those stories do you put out there in the world? What, you know, like how much is too much information? How much, there's a balance between that. So I can't remember the question now. What was the question?
What are the benefits? So we can start. You can start from mid-sentence, but what are the benefits of putting yourself out there? What have you seen? How has the brand changed? So we can start from. You can restart it, or where you left off.
No. So I don't remember the last thing I said. Sorry.
Do you want to start it all over again?
I'm gonna grab some coffee. I'm just monologuing
No.
here.
Go ahead. Here, take a pause. It's good to just take a pause, and I'll ask it again.
Okay.
And go.
Take two.
So with this big brand shift, putting yourself front and center, you know, I went on your website, Molly Hebda, and the first thing I saw was a picture of you, which I was like, yes, I love that. What have been the benefits of doing that big shift? And also, what have you noticed in the brand? Has that led to more sales? How has the company been affected by that transition?
I mean, it's definitely hard to put yourself out there, especially on the homepage. It's it took a little bit, like I was going to put other pictures up there or whatever, but if I'm going to own this, I'm going to own it. And I think it is helpful for my clients to see that I'm walking the walk and talking the talk and putting myself out there, because then it helps them step out of their comfort zone a little bit as well, because I know how it feels to be in front of the camera. I know how it is where I'm not like that ideal young age, I'm not that ideal young size, and I'm still doing it. It still takes a lot for me to do it myself. There's things that I'm learning about myself to be able to like not put too much out there, but put the right amount of stuff out there. But the more I share about what I've learned and who I am, the more connections I make with my clients. And I feel like the more they step out of their shadows as well.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that, because even in my journey, the more I'm vulnerable, whether it's online, in person, it's when you're able to make those real connections. Because again, we live in an era of social media where so many things are photoshopped, you don't know what's real, and it's hard to relate to that. And so instead, you put yourself down for not, you know, meeting these unrealistic expectations. And, you know, I can only imagine everyone feels like this. So when you finally see someone, you know, being vulnerable, being their true self, owning, you know, their insecurities, it's like, finally, I can relate to this person. And you're not pretending to be perfect. You're not making me feel that. But you know what I mean? It's almost like you don't feel alone in the sense that you don't feel good enough. And so I think people really connect with that.
Absolutely. And to be honest, like every single client that comes in, no matter how old they are, what backgrounds they have, what size they are, and what age, like it's just every single person has the same exact thing. Like, oh, I don't take good pictures. I look terrible in pictures. Can you make me 10 pounds lighter? Every single
you can
person.
Do that.
But what I do find from the photos is that every person that comes in, they then actually fall in love with who they are at this moment, because they see how beautiful they are, how powerful they are, how, you know, how like empowering they are to other people when they see these photos of who they are rather than a digitalized image of themselves.
Yeah, and I think that's where you come in. You bring that out in people. And I think that's your gift, because again, I've photographed with you, and you know, it starts off weird. You just think, you know, you start with the hand and hip, right? Like, God forbid, hand and hip, and you smile, and then, but you go deeper, and I think that's what's your charm. That's what sets you apart. It's just the pep talks you have, and the way that you're able to kind of take that out and just say, like, what are your goals? Like, what's your real purpose beyond looking 10 pounds lighter, which is, that would be great. But, you know, it's more than that. It's like, what is your life's purpose? What is your goal? And I think you have that gift in taking that out in people. So give yourself some credit for those beautiful pictures.
Thank you. But I also feel like within that too is when you are focused on yourself and like how you look, rather than the purpose of these photos are not just another pretty picture. They actually have purpose and a need for being out there, whether it's introducing yourself to your ideal clients or showcasing the services and what you want to be putting out there in the world. So like once you flip that script and get it off of like your insecurities and think about your people and what they need and what they need from you, then it gives you that purpose so that you're not like thinking about all those little flaws anymore.
Yeah. What would you say to the listeners who are afraid of putting themselves out there? And I used to be that person, because I actually started a online boutique before I started my clothing line, and I didn't put a single picture of myself. I didn't have an about, and it didn't sell. So it was a quick business failure. But I realize now, looking back, I didn't put myself out there. You couldn't tell who the shop was ran by, and I was scared. I was scared of failing and being made fun of. And so, you know, even for me sometimes, but you have to put yourself out there. But what would you say to women who are struggling with that right now, who don't want to put themselves out there?
Well, I mean, case in point with that, like you didn't put yourself out there for your business. Like nobody knew who you were. Like who is this person? What are they selling? Like, you know, is this like somebody else behind this?
Scam.
You know, is this like scam? This whole thing. But if you look online and just even as an example, if you see two florists, and you're looking for flowers for an event or a wedding or whatever it is, and you see both of them create beautiful flowers and, you know, arrangements and like the best of the best. But then you start to see one of them has more stories behind the scenes of how they work and their family that it supports and their clients that they work with and why they decided on this color collection rather than the other one. You start to make that personal connection with them. So then when you think about your business, you need to find ways to showcase yourself so then you can make that connection with the other people.
Right.
So one of the things I know, again, like people are afraid that they don't take really good pictures, like the whole, who am I to put myself out there? I need to lose 10 pounds or, you know, can you get rid of my crow's feet? All those things. But when you
can do that.
No, we don't need to. But when other people see that and when you flip that script, then they understand and then they start getting all these ideas of like, oh, I can do this, I can show this, people need to know the behind the scenes of this part and the purpose of these things. So when you start thinking about it in your customer's eyes, it stops being about the vanity.
Yeah. And actually, going to what you do, right, the solutions that you provide through photography for a lot of business owners, I think you going through a brand photography session actually helps put you out there, right? Like how critical is it important to have these branded images of yourself for your business? I mean, you've seen it firsthand.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, one of the best things that I don't know where I heard it, but somebody had said it in one of the books or whatever I read, but you need to invest in yourself. And the more you invest in yourself and the more you put your value on you and your knowledge and everything that you're putting out there in the world, the more people are going to value you as well. So, but first you need to invest in yourself and you need to put that investment in yourself. So having brand photography for me, I've DIY'd my whole life and my business and all those things, but there's some things that I need to go out and get, professionals to do for me. It's a boost in your confidence. It's how you want to see yourself in the world and how you want others to see yourself. So then it also kind of creates this like vision board for yourself. So when you feel like crap, when you have your bad days or you're not getting any sales or you're not getting like the right clients, you can look at that and be like, you know what, this is who I want to be. So like I'm going to go back to the drawing board and get back out there again.
Remind yourself that you are that bitch.
Yes, I am that bitch.
All right, so for our listeners, right, we talked about branding, how important it is for your business branding. What are some 2 actionable steps that our listeners can do that they can implement in their brands right now that they're just starting off that will, put themselves front and center? Do you have any tips?
One step is what helped me the most to figure out like how to actually step into my brand. A lot of people, and I know I've like searched and taken a lot of courses on finding my voice. So I went back and actually wrote out like my timeline of my life and my business timeline. And I found those points of where there were like those pivotal like moments where I learned a lot or failed and got those lessons. And I use that in my branding, in my business. I feel like it gives me a connection to the people that I want to help. So like if I take a look at like where I was in my business and what changed, like with my change of name and actually putting myself out there, stop thinking about what I should be doing, what people think I should be doing, and actually go back to the things that I need to do in life and the things that I want to do in life. That helped me find my voice and find my brand itself, if that makes sense.
No, that's awesome. I didn't realize there were courses for this.
Yeah, there's like courses for anything. So
that's awesome.
Some of the stuff worked, and then you hear all these things. Like, even just like your ideal client. Your ideal client, you're supposed to create this like fictional person of like all these things. But if you actually take a look at your ideal client and look at yourself and who you were 3 to 5 steps before, that's actually a better place because then you can connect with them, and then others people can connect with what you're saying and what you're talking about. So I would definitely say know who you are, know your timeline, know those pivotal moments that are going to help establish your brand and your connection to your people. Okay, so the other thing is the biggest thing for me was clarity. Clarity on my messaging, which the first step did definitely help that. But then clarity on the images that I wanted to put out there and like those buckets that I wanted to talk about on social media. So I have it a little bit easier because I have images that I take of all of these people and all of the things that, the different brands and companies that I work with and the small businesses. But if you even just look at the things that you have, just like that Instagram reel of like everything is content.
Right, exactly, yes.
Everything is content. So you don't have to necessarily do a whole big brand shoot, but getting some clarity pieces with your imagery of like, okay, a really stellar headshot and a couple stellar images of you that you can put out there and be like, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, this is, this is my company. And then you can build on that. So like, take those behind the scenes for your step-by-step processes. People want to see like who you are. They're curious. And like, all right, I know this woman, but then what do they do behind the scenes? How do they make these things happen? So, so yeah, I would start off with like getting some clarity pieces on your imagery that you want to put out there, and those little buckets like, you know, behind the scenes or working with clients and things like that. Obviously, like branding photos will definitely give you a catalog of all those things that you could just pop everywhere. But just even like kind of making that list for yourself of getting some key pieces that you want to put out there in the world.
Yeah, you know, I do want to say that you know, the last time we shot together, actually, the photo of the cover for this podcast you shot. So
I did.
This is the photographer who shot my podcast cover photo. But the awesome thing about what you just said too is just getting clarity around like who you are, because with that session, that was for my clothing brand. But what I love about that photo is that I'm, you know, it's very subtle, but I'm sitting on a desk. I have my color pencils, I have my sketches. So it just kind of evokes this creative person. I'm also wearing like a purple vest, like a blazer, which is like, you know, kind of showing this creative side, this person that I, you know, the best version of myself. And the fact that I was able to not only use it for my clothing brand, but I was able to use it for my podcast, right? I think it just goes to show the message is when you're clear and consistent on like what is your message and what is your purpose, even in brand photography, it shows, right? It's applicable because it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I'm always going to be this creative person, right?
I know.
So I love that.
And I love how you and a couple other clients are really good about, here we did just 2 small photo shoots and you have like a small catalog of photos, but you use them in so many different ways. And having that consistency builds trust with your clients and the people that see you. So like, they see you the same person as with your clothing line as your podcast and any other speaking engagements that you do. And I have another client that she uses it in her newsletters and on her website and in her social, and then she's kind of rebranded a couple times within the last couple of years since she did the photo shoot. But because she used who she was as her brand, it still is relevant to now.
And it's so much easier.
Yeah, so much easier.
Trying to take a new picture every time and like, it's so much easier.
And when you're not sure like what to post or any of those kinds of things, but when you get the clarity and you have those images that, you know, go with that message that you want to put out there, it's so much easier to just take a photo and be like, all right, I'm going to use this for this thing.
Right.
And then like later down the road, you would use the same photo and use it for something else, but it still applies.
You know, I will say for any listeners, if you're kind of starting your brand, starting a business, or even have like a website, really invest in a photography session, specifically with Molly. If you're in the Chicago, Illinois area, I love the way that she photographs. I love the way how she pulls that confidence out of you. And honestly, like she said, it's about investing in yourself. It's about not portraying like who you want to be, but like the best version of yourself, who you are, your mission. So Molly, how can people find you?
I am mostly on Instagram nowadays, Molly Hebda Photography for Instagram, and I Facebook handle, but I'm hardly ever on Facebook anymore.
Same, I
know, right? It's kind of a ghost town. But also my website, mollyhebda.com. I'm going to be revamping my blog as well. I've been finding that I really actually like to write, and I have a lot to say. So feel free to follow along on there. And I really do love getting into my newsletter. So on my website or on social media, you can follow along on the newsletter. I don't know, I just like connecting with people on that.
No, absolutely.
The last thing that we are revamping is there is a women's group that we have in town that we are starting again. And right now we're just casually getting together. And I believe wholeheartedly in community.
Absolutely.
And also not necessarily just like the typical networking. I want to have a vulnerable, intimate relationship with the women businesses that are in town and around. So we do like just easy get-togethers, just like meet up at some of the restaurants in town just to casually get together and get to know each other. But then we are going to be starting some workshops and all-day workshops.
How can they find out about this?
You can go on my website and you'll be able to just add yourself to the category of, you know, the women business.
That's awesome. So if you are even just thinking about starting a business, maybe you haven't taken the plunge yet, join a community because you're going to be quickly inspired to do it.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Molly. And I will, in the show notes, I'll include all your Instagram handle and your website, so you can just easily click on it and go check out Molly. Molly, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited that you were able to drive down and finally get this done. So thank you so much, Molly.
Thank you, Jocelyn.
Hi, gorgeous listeners. I have exciting news to share. If you're an inspiring entrepreneur who has been thinking about starting your business and ultimately quitting your job, but you're having trouble figuring out how to get started on your business and how to leave your job feeling fully prepared, then listen up. I am working with a select few aspiring entrepreneurs to coach them into starting their businesses and preparing them to quit their job the right way. My mission is to empower women to follow their dreams. And what better way to accomplish that than by doing just that? I quit my 9-to-5 job at a Fortune 500 company 2 years ago to start my clothing brand business. And it has been the most challenging but exhilarating journey I have embarked on. I made many mistakes and learned so many lessons. And I want to empower women to embark on their own entrepreneurial journey in a way that makes them feel prepared and confident to take that leap. This is a new coaching program, and as part of the beta launch, the selected candidates will receive deeply discounted pricing. You'll get a series of one-on-one sessions with me where I prepare you to save money to fund your business, figure out what business to start, build your product offering and bring it to market, have those tough conversations with your spouse, family, and employer. Build a community of entrepreneurs you can lean on for inspiration and support. Ultimately, quit your job where you feel completely prepared for your new journey, and so much more. Apply using the quick 6-question form using the link in the show notes. Can't wait to help you make your dreams come true.